If you're a NASCAR fan, NASCAR enthusiast in this day and age, and you aren't familiar with this name, Rick Hendrick, it's seriously time to consider taking up a NASCAR history course in college. Wait, hold the phones here, folks. So you're telling me that they do not offer a NASCAR history class because NASCAR is straight up irrelevant in the modern culture? Well, that honestly sucks, but good thing for you out there, and even the professors that would seriously teach this course if it were offered. There's this production that I've put together to look at the surface level, the murky level, and the deep, dark level to the iconic NASCAR Cup Series owner. NRF Productions proudly presents the Rick Hendrick NASCAR Iceberg. Every single NASCAR Sunday, Rick Hendrick confidently strides the pit lane, and honestly, why shouldn't he? His 4-car race team based in Concord, North Carolina, Hendrick Motorsports, is the most storied franchise in NASCAR's entire history. Decade after decade after decade, his roster has been filled with iconic drivers, winners, champions. Something that definitely warrants the label as the Green Bay Packers or the New York Yankees of auto racing. Darrell Waltrip doing the icky shuffle after winning Hendrick his first Daytona 500. Terry Labonte, the 1996 champion for the team. Jeff Gordon, with Rick Hendrick as his car owner, he won 93 races, 4 championships, although in all honesty it should have been 7 if he didn't have all those back issues and if Alan Gustafson decided to change left side tires instead of rights at the 2014 Texas race. And is today the right-hand man to the man that changed his entire life forever, Jimmie Johnson. He's in a category with only Dale Earnhardt and Richard Petty as a 7-time champion, enough said. Dale Earnhardt Jr., all 10 years with HMS, he won the Most Popular Driver Award and won HMS their 8th and most recent Daytona 500 all the way back in 2014. Man, Hendrick Motorsports, they've got to start striving a bit more than the annual pole award because, not winning a Daytona 500 in 9-10 years, not the greatest. Then you have the most underrated person in Hendrick Motorsports history, Jeff Bodine. Rick Hendrick has expressed publicly that the 1984 Spring Martinsville race, that was originally supposed to be it. Without Bodine's clutch win, which Hendrick didn't even attend because he didn't think they had a good chance of actually pulling it off, we are not speaking of Mr. Rick Hendrick today. The present-day core consists of fresh faces in Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, as well as William Byron and Alex Bowman. 4 drivers that are the modern throwback to the all-time greats that strapped up for this historic organization. Through their 42 wins, 2020 and 2021 Cup Series championships, making Hendrick Motorsports history on May 16th, 2021 with the team's first 1-2-3-4 finish. Then of course a few weeks later, Hendrick Motorsports with this core broke NASCAR history just 4 minutes east of their state-of-the-art race shop as Kyle Larson's win vaulted Hendrick ahead of the defunct Petty Enterprises to become the winningest organization in NASCAR history. Those are just some of the drivers, some of the moments that have defined the Hendrick Motorsports story. Today, Hendrick Motorsports has 291 Cup Series victories, and to put that into perspective, that's the equivalent of winning every race in a given season 8 times. Hendrick Motorsports has been successful to the point where if they do not win the championship in November, the season is considered a colossal failure, especially when you've won 14 Cup titles, including 9 of the last 17 dating back to Jimmie Johnson's first in 2006. This racing dream has been made possible due to the upbringing of Rick Hendrick. His father instilled in him at a young age the value of the day's grind, hard work, and as they say, the rest works out for itself. At the age of 26, he became the youngest Chevrolet dealer in the entire country. Today, Rick Hendrick has a net worth of over $1 billion, and his Hendrick Automotive Group operates 130 franchises nationally. And that is replicated on the racetrack because every Sunday, with the exception of 3 races due to Valvoline, you see the 2021 Cup Series champion Kyle Larson rep the automotive dealership with this classic throwback look. A design that is not so much a homage to the past, but rather the creative heart and soul that once drove these colors. Ricky Hendrick was an individual that had racing run through his blood like water through a stream. Originally, his ambitions were to climb the NASCAR ranks to become teammates with Jeff Gordon, Jimmie Johnson, and Terry Labonte. For 3 years, he took to the track in both the NASCAR Busch Series and the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. In the latter, he won his first and only NASCAR-sanctioned race at the Kansas Speedway. Dad Rick and Mom Linda were there to see their son achieve success in something he was so passionate about. That is every parent's dream scenario. Ultimately, Ricky was hammered with concussions and injuries throughout his NASCAR career, choosing to retire and instead become a mentor to younger drivers. Many believed he would become the eventual heir to Mr. H as the chairman of the team. For Ricky, John and his 2 daughters, Kimberly, Jennifer, Randy Dorton, Jeff Turner, Scott Latham, and Joe Jackson, they would see their life stories tragically cut short. The 2004 Hendrick plane crash was a dagger into the heart and soul of Rick and the entire organization, but their memories still live to this day. Ricky's through the backwards hat tribute in Victory Lane after every Hendrick Motorsports victory, and through his daughter, Josephine Riddick Ricky Hendrick. Meanwhile, every year, the Hendrick Motorsports shop plays host to an engine building challenge in honor of Randy Dorton. The culture and the heavy hearts is definitely something that kind of gets lost sometimes when you think of Hendrick Motorsports. When they're out there winning races, you forget to think about the people that have really driven this organization. And whether we're talking about the unsung heroes in the shop or those so dear to Mr. H in his heart, he just seems to bring out an aura of success. And trust me, this isn't just limited to NASCAR or the automotive sphere by any means. Emily Maynard, Rick Hendrick's to-be daughter-in-law and Josephine's mother, was the main star for season 8 of The Bachelorette. Yes, I'm not kidding you, there was a NASCAR-themed Bachelorette season, and it would feature many former racers as contestants, including open-wheel star Ari Luyendyk. As for country music superstar and Survivor finalist Chase Rice, he can indeed brag that he won more championships for Hendrick Motorsports than Dale Earnhardt Jr. In his time with the organization, he won 2 championships as the rear tire carrier for Jimmie Johnson. Chase Rice wasn't the only athlete. In fact, believe it or not, Rick Hendrick was a standout athlete in Parkview High School, where he actually got an opportunity to play professional baseball before he would turn that down and ultimately go into the avenue of racing. And it doesn't stop there, because Rick Hendrick, yes, car owner Rick Hendrick, made 4 top 3 NASCAR sanctioned starts, racing in 1 Truck Series event, 1 Xfinity event, and 2 NASCAR Cup Series races, including one in which he was subbing for an injured Tim Richmond. His best finish being 15th at the Riverside Speedway, driving his own equipment, as Rick Hendrick was that driver car owner before it became cool in the 1990s. As you can tell, when you go a bit deeper into those waters, you see more than just the wins and championships. You see the heart and soul of the organization. But the energy showcased by the people around him doesn't exactly match up with some of the deeper, darker things about the 14-time NASCAR Cup Series championship winning owner. Almost 7 years on the exact day of the anniversary of the tragic Hendrick plane crash, we almost lost Rick Hendrick. A private jet lent out to Rick and Linda by Jimmie Johnson lost its brakes on arrival in Key West, Florida. All 4 passengers in this incident were injured, including Mr. H, who suffered the worst of them all with a broken rib and a broken collarbone. One of his drivers at the time, Dale Earnhardt Jr., coined this scary to hear about, though for quite a few out there, maybe they felt that karma was warranted for the successful NASCAR and automotive businessman. I kid you not. As the thing about Rick Hendrick is that he isn't exactly the most law-abiding citizen. In the 1980s, Honda was the hottest selling car in the States, and so, unsurprisingly, the competition for Honda dealerships, it was heated. So based on what we know about the character of Rick Hendrick in the Iceberg, as a good-hearted guy, as someone that found success young, somebody that has an incredible work ethic due to his life on the farm, you would think that a man like Rick Hendrick would be able to pursue Honda dealerships in a legal way, but that would not be the case at all. Rick Hendrick would commit mail fraud, whether it was by directly ordering his employees or by sending cash himself. Rick Hendrick attempted to bribe Honda executives in order to get himself more Honda dealerships. This mail fraud would end up working. It gained Hendrick 26 dealerships, but the government was already on the case due to someone in New Hampshire bringing this to attention 3 years earlier. Rick Hendrick would ultimately plead guilty to mail fraud. Now, he would eventually be pardoned by Bill Clinton, but his punishment was a $250,000 fine, 3 years probation, the inability to participate in his automotive or NASCAR operations, and to be confined in his home in Charlotte for 12 months. So I'm sure you guys are wondering, and also not wondering at the same time, why Rick Hendrick didn't have to worry about dropping the soap. Well, around this time, Rick Hendrick learned that he was diagnosed with chronic myelogenous leukemia. That disease is a killer for most 47-year-olds. Mr. Hendrick was given just years left to live. Now, honestly, there wouldn't be much to critique, as leukemia, it is a serious illness. However, there is one key thing we've got to look at. The fact that this diagnosis was found out on November 17th of 1996. This was just 18 days before he was officially indicted of charges in the Honda bribery case. Now, going off some of the stuff from the court proceedings, medical information was eventually submitted by Hendrick's doctor and presented. And a lot of NASCAR fans would probably say that this conspiracy theory has legs because, let's look at Rick Hendrick. He's not exactly the most fit guy. Considering that, as well as the statistics, it is plausible. I'm not saying that it definitely happened, but it is plausible that Rick Hendrick faked his leukemia to get a lesser sentence. However, I gotta put this out there. This is still a conspiracy theory. There has been no medical documents. There has been no evidence that actually proves that Rick Hendrick indeed faked leukemia. But even with a convicted criminal with a serious illness that a lot of people would debate the timing of, there's still 1 foot deeper, darker in this iceberg. Rick Hendrick, storied NASCAR owner, automotive powerhouse, a guy that has touched so many lives due to his work ethic and his success, might be one of the most dangerous criminals in the entire United States. Billy Crump, for many years, was the right-hand man to Rick Hendrick, a loyal employee that helped grow Hendrick Sportswear into an 8-figure entity. Eventually, Crump would end up starting his own company called Promotional Management Incorporated, and you could tell that people had good faith in Crump personally because Dale Earnhardt's manager told Hendrick Sportswear, if Crump is no longer involved with Hendrick Sportswear, we are going with him. In the process, Earnhardt, Bill Elliott, and Darrell Waltrip signed contracts with Billy Crump, and he seemed to be heading down a path of riches with the juggernaut NASCAR was becoming in the early 90s. Before one fateful night after bingo, 2 men would approach Crump's BMW and told him, "Hold it right there." His wife Ann watched in horror as Billy stepped out of the vehicle and the 2 men opened fire. At that exact moment, we lost Billy Crump. Now, as of this recording, this case has yet to be solved, but many believe that this was a hitman operation headed by either Ken Barbie, who partnered with Hendrick Sportswear to launch Motorsport Transitions, or the 14-time NASCAR Cup Series champion owner, Rick Hendrick. The obvious reason being that Crump was planning to create a rivaling motorsports merchandising company and one that was going to take away customers from Hendrick Sportswear. That is an argument right there that is plausible, but you also can't forget the mail fraud committed by Rick Hendrick, and then you have to consider the status of Billy Crump to Rick Hendrick. There were a few people that knew Rick Hendrick from a business sense as good as Crump, and now with him out of the company, Billy Crump was a massive threat to the business and reputation that Rick Hendrick had built. Now I gotta clarify, there's still a lot of gray areas around this mystery. Rick Hendrick is innocent before proven guilty. This is what the United States is built on. This is the procedure we have. I think it's a bit outrageous to go around saying that Rick Hendrick indeed killed Billy Crump or hired a hitman to take him out. Still, one can only wonder if Rick Hendrick, a guy that built an automotive business and a racing team, is one of the mastermind killers of our generation. Well, I guess there's only one way to know for sure. If I suddenly disappear from YouTube, then I guess that answers that question. If you enjoyed watching the Rick Hendrick NASCAR Iceberg, why don't you dive more into the Hendrick conspiracies rabbit hole with Does NASCAR Favor Chase Elliott? Or why don't you check out how Dale Earnhardt Jr. amped up his personality, especially towards the end of his career. Other than that, this is Nathan for NRF Productions. Life's a beach, and then you drive.